What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. Today's show is one of my favorite episodes yet. We are so excited to have DDS Dobson Smith on the program. If you don't know DDS, it's a good thing you're here. They're a licensed therapist, author, executive coach, speaker, and Reiki master. DDS is also the founder and CEO of Soul Trained, an executive coaching and leadership growth consultancy. They're also the author of the new book, You Can Be Yourself Here, Your Pocket Guide to Creating Inclusive Workplaces Using the Psychology of Belonging. We talk about DEI as we know it and as it needs to evolve. We talk about building organizational cultures based on the psychology of belonging. This is a good one. So buckle up, TCBers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with DDS Dobson Smith on today's TCB.
Welcome to SkyTeam's The Corporate Bartender, where we gather some of the best HR and people leaders to discuss what's happening on the people side of business. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
Well, welcome, everybody. It's great to see you all. Lori can't be with us today. She is speaking on a panel with a bunch of lawyers down in Denver. I think Chuck might be there too. So we'll have to get her debrief of her afternoon with the legal profession when she gets back next week. But it's Wednesday. It's your favorite day and mine. It's Corporate Bartender Day. It is the 13th of April, and we are at episode 127. Today, we have a guest today. You'll see a strange person up at the top left of your little window for Zoom. You'll see DDS Dobson Smith. He is the author of You Can Be Yourself Here, Your Pocket Guide to Creating Inclusive Workplaces by Using the Psychology of Belonging. So he's here today. We're going to talk about that, sort of building on our conversation from last week, where we talked about DEIB and nomenclature and how things have changed over the years and the generational differences that we're all experiencing. So before jumping into anything, I'm leaving news up to you guys today. Anything that has popped across your radar that you've noticed over the last week that you think we would benefit from learning about? I posted a few things over on the network, and there's been some other activity. Hillary put some stuff over there as well. Anything on anybody's radar before we jump into our conversation with DDS?
Not about that, but I'm not sure that what he's talking about here might be accurate, Eric, because Laurel, before you joined, I was quite colorful in my story from the week and my language. So that would probably get me kick hand. How about that? Not terminated, but let's just continue on with the language.
Well, you know, that all depends on where you work. If you work with Laurel, I think that's pretty well accepted. And you heard DDS said he thinks we're his people. So that's good, right?
Yep.
I had a manager last week say, I just want a place where I can come to work and say fuck.
Yes. So that is the correct answer, at least for me anyway. I know that Mark's always paying attention, and sometimes we have guests who carry themselves in a slightly different manner, and I try to be on my best behavior, and Mark's always a little disappointed if I don't drop at least one before the end of the show. So
well, come to find out, the background for that story is that I knew his wife had just delivered a child.
Oh.
About a month ago, 6 weeks ago. They have a 2-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
So now he has to stop using that word at home because the 2-year-old, of course, has now learned the word.
I did see, speaking of replacing, I did see a meme the other day that had a picture of an office scene, and it said, how to succeed at work. Replace fuck you with okay, great.
Yep. Bless her heart.
Bless her heart. Awesome. Well, as always, if you guys come across things that you think we would all benefit from, please drop them in over on the network. That would be fantastic. And with that, we're going to get right on into our conversation Today we have a guest, DDS Dobson Smith. He is a licensed therapist, author, executive coach, speaker, and Reiki master. Right. So we have questions about Reiki. I was wondering, can you do that over Zoom? Or does that require physical proximity? I do not know the answer to that, but stay tuned, folks, because we'll get that here today. He is the author of this book here, You Can Be Yourself Here, the pocket guide to creating inclusive workplaces by using the psychology of belonging. So with that, let's welcome, with a good TCB welcome, DDS Dobson Smith. All right, DDS, you ready? Now you have a sense for what you're getting into here.
I am hyped.
Well, welcome and thanks for being here today. You know, we always ask folks that are new to the show, we ask a question. We ask them to tell us who they are, where they are, what they do, and one boring thing about themselves. So who, where, what, and one boring thing. And then I'll ask you a deeper question about your story. But that's where we start.
Well, I'm DDS. I am in Fairfield County in Connecticut, in a town called Newtown. And I am the CEO and founder of an executive coaching and leadership growth consultancy called Soul Trained.
Which is a fantastic name. And I want to do a dance to it. I think that's a great thing. Soul Trained. Awesome. What's one boring thing about you, DDS?
I generally don't wear anything other than black.
Right. But you had to change for this show, didn't you?
But you don't tell anyone that. That's ruined the mystique.
It's proving your humanity.
I was wearing a white t-shirt earlier and I was like, oh shit, am I going to be on video? I better go and put black on.
I love it. I love it. Well, tell us your story, because I imagine, well, I don't hear a Fairfield, Connecticut accent. And I don't imagine that when you were your much younger self, you didn't dream to be what you are today. Tell us your journey. How did you get here to be the author of this book, to be the CEO of this consulting firm? How did that happen?
Oh my goodness me. Well, I know we don't have a full hour for me to go through the whole story, so I'll try and do a nutshell. I guess it's probably important to say, like, right at the very beginning, when I was doing my undergrad in the UK, it was in hospitality management, and I was doing my degree with. There was a mature student called Angela Toon who was running a department in an hospitality college in another city, and she said to me, "You'd be a great teacher," and I went, "Okay," and she gave me a job teaching hospitality management, and I remember one of the first groups that I was teaching was to a group of mature students, and it was a public house operations class. And I remember very distinctly a day that I was handing back an assignment to one of the students, a gentleman called Howard, who was born in the same year and on the same day as my mother. And he had owned his pub longer than I had been alive. And I remember handing him back his assignment and having graded it a C. And I just saw the look in his eyes, like, who the hell is this kid grading me a C? And I was like, yeah, Howard, you're absolutely right. And I decided at that point to go out into corporate world, get some experience under my belt and go back to teaching. And so I looked around for a career that was as closely related to adult learning as I could think, and joined a graduate development program with the British retailer Marks and Spencer. And so that then started a 25-year-long career in HR. And so for 25 years, I've been in learning and development, org psych, org development roles in global and national organizations up to board and C-suite level. And that's pretty much where I ended up with Soul Trained. 3 years ago, I decided to set up Soul Trained because I had been a purchaser of executive coaching services and leadership development programs for many years, and thought about, well, I thought I could do it differently, and I thought I could do it better. And that's where Soul Train came from.
I love it. I love it. Your story's great. And these are your people, right? These are people that have spent their careers in HR and leadership development. That's what we do. That's who we are. Mark referred to us in the chat as a small but crazy group. And that's true. And we've all had those thoughts too, right? We thought, man, we are the consumers of these services, right? I bet some of us have said, I bet we can do that a little differently, right? We do it with a little bit of a hook, a little bit of an angle. What compelled you to write this book? I mean, it's a timely topic, and you know, it's hot right now for everybody, especially as we deal with the complexities of hybrid work and reasons why people may or may not want to return to the old ways. What got you here to write that book?
Two things. First of all, my own lived experience of being a member of the LGBTQ community in a heteronormative world, and having been repeatedly told throughout my career, could you tone it down, please? Which is obviously coded, stop being so gay. Right. And it wasn't until I was in a C-suite position when a fellow C-suite member said to me before we headed into a meeting, it was like, you know, DDS, could you just be a little bit less? And I looked them in the eye and I was like, a little bit less what? Because I was just like, I was pissed. And I was like, actually, you know, I've got some responsibility here. And they went, you know, just be a little bit less gay. And I looked at this person and I said, could you be a little bit less straight?
Right.
And they said to me, I don't know what you mean. I said, well, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And I thought to myself, if it's taken me 25 years to pluck up the courage to be able to say that, and to be able to have a retort or a rebuttal or a pushback on the microaggression, then I'm just think about all of the other people, all of the women, all of the Black, Brown, First Nations people, all of the disabled people, all of the fat-bodied people who have been on the receiving end of those sorts of behaviors. And I just thought, fuck this, I want to do something about it. Then the other thing, I just said, fuck, I'm sorry. Then you
can say fuck as much as you want. It's all good.
Yeah.
There's Ruby. Ruby's here.
So the other thing was I'm an adjunct professor at so I went back into academia eventually, and I'm an adjunct professor teaching master's students how to be psychotherapists. And as I trained in getting my own master's in counseling psychology, this book started life as a paper, an academic paper. That was really taking my lived experience, thinking about my career in HR and creating workplaces where people could be themselves, and ended up with this paper. And of course, an academic paper does not make good reading. So I turned it into a book, and that's where we got to.
I love it. I love the way that you tee up diversity, inclusion, and belonging. You have kind of a unique way to describe them, and they're different in how they feel. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I really want to give credit to the colleague who really helped me develop this equation, and that colleague is a female of color called Kalpita. So thank you, Kalpita. And we were in a conversation one day, and where we got to was this idea that diversity is a fact. Inclusion is a behavior, and belonging is an experience. So diversity plus inclusion equals behavior, equals belonging. And so diversity is a fact, right? Because when you look around, is your organization diverse or not? It's yes or no, right?
Right. You can observe it.
It either is or it isn't, right? And when I look around, do I see people who are like me? Yes. And do I see people who are not like me? Yes. Chances are there's some diversity and representation in the organization. Inclusion is a behavior. And by behavior, I not only mean the way in which we interact with each other, but I mean organizational behavior in the form of policies, procedures, platforms, products, the way in which we show up in the world as an organization, as a team, as an individual. And belonging is a somatic, affective, psychological experience that we have when we feel like we are, you know, in a place where there is diversity and where we're included. Now, the thing is, you can't have belonging without inclusion, and you can't have inclusion without diversity, but you can have diversity without inclusion, right? And so it's an equation that only works one way, doesn't always work both ways.
Interesting. No, I think that's fascinating. You also said that diversity and inclusion, we use those terms together all the time.
We do.
But you said they're more like cousins than they are siblings. What did you mean by that?
I don't know. It just seemed like something that seemed. I mean, I think you know, when I hear us HR folk speak about it, or when I hear executives speak about it, about this topic, DEIB has been reduced to an acronym,
right?
And when it is reduced to an acronym, we miss the complexity, and we avoid being able to actually do the stuff that needs to be done in order to create the experience of belonging. Because we say, oh, it's DEIB. There's a head of DEIB, right? DEIB targets. I'm like, what the fuck does all of that mean anyway? Right? Like, so when we start to decompose it and separate out that diversity is a thing on its own,
right?
And inclusion is a thing on its own, and belonging is a thing on its own, and that we have to treat them as individual topics that require their own attention, but that are also related, right? And I guess probably the reason why I said cousins is because, you know, when you've got siblings, there's always one that's favorite, and there's always one that's like left out. And so when there's cousins, it's like I don't know, there's more equality, I think, from a cousin perspective than there tends to be in sibling arrangements.
It's a fair point. That's a fair point. You know, thinking about just that fact, behavior, experience sort of flow, you know, inclusion being a behavior, right? There's a whole lot of research and buzz around psychological safety and the Amy Edmondson work. You know, how do we as HR people, how do we go about building cultures that are psychologically safe? I mean, you think about it from a policy perspective or a practices perspective. What can we do to influence a culture of belonging?
Well, I mean, the first thing that I always like to remind people, you know, when there's no such thing as a safe space. So I like to think about intentionally brave spaces instead. And the reason why I say there's no such thing as a safe space is because usually when somebody claims a space to be safe, they're coming from a place of power and privilege, right? Like, so if I'm in a room and a straight person says, this is a safe space, DDS, you can speak. I'm like, you have no clue what it is like to be me. And you can't claim this to be, just claiming a space to be safe doesn't make it safe for me. But what we can do is invite each other into intentionally brave spaces where we can have these conversations. But an important ingredient to it, or a prerequisite for, if you will, for an intentionally brave space is the quality of psychological safety, which I believe is the quality that we experience, or the state that we experience when it is not expensive to be ourselves.
Expensive. That's an interesting choice of word.
So when it's not expensive for us to be able to show up how we are, who we are to the fullest extent, then we're likely to experience that psychological safety. When we experience psychological safety in the workplace, you get to say things like, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, I made a mistake, I don't know. We also get people, you also get the courage to be able to say, I have an idea, or I think we can do this differently, or I'd like to make this better. But without psychological safety, you don't get any of that. You don't get any of that. You get people retreating, you get people covering, and you get people staying in their corner, the corner that that society and the patriarchy or whatever have placed us in.
So just like we can have a head of DEIB and we can have initiatives, we can claim spaces to be safe, and we can say that we embrace a culture of psychological safety. How do we know if we're doing it or not? How do we know that we're not just saying it, and that the lived experience of the people in the organization, because it's so psychologically unsafe, nobody's saying anything about it?
You have to watch for the eye rolls.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would first of all be very careful about who is saying we have a culture of. Just be very careful about who's saying that, because is that person representative of the people in that culture? And therefore, is what they're saying, can it be experienced as a real lived experience by the people that it's being said about? Now, how do you know if you have an environment in which people experience psychological safety? Well, you're probably hearing things like, I'm sorry, I don't know, I made a mistake, I have an idea, I'd like to do things differently. If you hear that, the chances are people are experiencing that idea or that experience of psychological safety. I mean, there's other ways, right? I wonder how many organizations out there in their employee opinion surveys measure, how safe do you feel here? And
that's
then
a great question,
right? Like, how safe do you feel here? Do you feel like you belong? I mean, those are two, like, if you just like, I've seen employee opinion surveys in my time. I've managed employee opinion surveys in my time that have got like 120 questions and themes, and there's retro analysis and the whole thing. I'm just like, really, you could just ask two questions. How safe do you feel here? And to what extent do you feel like you belong? And that will give you enough to let you know how well you're performing from a people perspective. Because very recently I wrote an article about the Great Resignation, which I reframed as the Great Realization.
Oh, I love it.
And I think over the last couple of years, we've asked ourselves some very deep existential questions. And one of those questions is, am I doing what I want to do? And if the answer has been no, so many people have gone, okay, well, I'm going to go and start my own business. I'm going to become a Reiki master and an author. And or some people have said yes. And when they've said yes, they ask themselves the question, and am I doing it where I want to do it? Do I feel safe here? Do I belong here? Does my work bring me meaning and purpose? And if the answer is no, they've voted with their feet. So this isn't, and I don't think there's less talent in the market. I think there's just more discerning talent in the market, and they're asking different questions of their employers. And the employers that are going to win out in this Great Resignation, Great Realization, some people calling it the Great Regret now as well, but in this period of time, the employers that are going to win out are the ones that are going to provide environments where people feel like they belong, and work that drives meaning and purpose. Simple as that. Wow.
So you guys heard it here. There's your new employee survey. 2 questions. Easy peasy. It's interesting. DDS, we talked about this last week. Just, you look around this room, and there's a lot of white folks of a certain age here in this room.
Yeah.
And how do we, as white Gen X people, how do we mostly, yes, Mark, I'm including you in the Gen Xers today. How do we become aware, right, of all the social conditioning that we've grown up with, and how do we help to dismantle those internalized biases, right? Because we all have them. How do we make sure that we're keyed into that, and what steps can we take to deprogram that?
I mean, first of all, accept that you have been subject to social conditioning at the hands of, you know, a system that promotes and favors anyone who is white, straight, cisgender, male, non-disabled, thin. So first of all, start there, that I have been impacted by this system, that I can't not have been impacted by everything that we see in the media, in the news, in adverts, in pop culture, the whole thing. I can't not have been affected by that.
Yeah.
So in what ways have I been affected by that? That's where you start. And then it's a process of self-education, right? Self-awareness, self-acceptance. So self-awareness precedes self-acceptance, and self-acceptance precedes self-development. And you know, there's some really, really easy things that you can do. Check your social feeds. Look at Instagram.
Oh God.
Are you following people who are like you?
Yeah.
And change it.
Yeah.
Start following people that are going to rattle your cage, that are going to show that are going to show you a different perspective on life.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. It's a really simple thing, but you know, when you're doom scrolling, I don't know, you sat on the toilet and you're just clicking through, or it's the last thing you do before you go to bed, or if you know, now we're starting to commute again, if you're on the train or on a plane, like that's when you're flicking through, and these, you know, you can reprogram yourself in a beautiful way. Check who you hang out with. Who's feeding your own internal news feed? And then I would say read, watch, and listen. There are, in the back of the book, I provide so many different resources of TED Talks and books and articles and Instagram accounts that you can follow to do your own self-education. And remember, please remember that it is not the job of somebody who has an identity from an historically excluded group to tell you what's up, right? Like, don't the emotional labor that they've been doing their entire lives is heavy enough. Please don't ask them to do any more. That's why we've got Google, right? Like, if you've got a question, and then it is not our right to walk up to anybody else and ask them deep and personal questions if they haven't been invited.
Right.
But there's Google. It's just really, really simple.
It's like people wanting to touch pregnant women's bellies. They think they can do that too.
Yeah. I mean, just, you know, comments about hair for Black people, comments about tone of skin, like all of those things. It's just like,
not cool.
It's not cool.
And if you put it in any other context, most of those people would think that's not cool, but it's because what's interesting to me is I think some of those folks actually think they're helping. They think they're doing the right thing by reaching out and wanting to learn. But totally to your point, right? I mean, that's not the venue for that sort of thing.
Right.
You know, it's interesting. You talk about the people that you surround yourself with. And we talked a little bit about this last week. You know, a lot of us have kids, and I have theater kids, right? So theater kids, for me, they're the best people on earth because they see people as human beings first, full stop. And it's interesting to me, the ease with which that perspective comes to them.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So just hearing them talk and hearing them interact with each other and talking to their friends. And I mean, that has been an education in and of itself for me. So the people that you surround yourself with, I mean, sometimes we get lucky because we produce them, so they have no choice but to hang out with us. But what are some other ways that you can think of that, I mean, adding to your social feeds is one thing, but it's different for me to read about something than to hear, you know, my kids and their friends talking about a topic in real time, right? I mean, are there things that we could do to put ourselves in places where we could be party to those conversations or hear those conversations, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff out there. You know, there's a great video series. I can't remember the title of it, but it's Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man.
Oh,
like there's stuff out there. Like you can just there's just tons and tons of stuff on YouTube that you can go and consume. There are podcasts that you can consume. I think you know, there was a thought that sparked in me, Eric, as you were talking about how, you know, kids will see humans first. You know, I think it's really also it's also really, really important for us as adults to avoid at all costs the phrase of, well, I don't see color, I see everyone as a human. I don't see queerness. We should all just get along. And the sentiment of that is absolutely true, but the impact of that is erasure, right? Yeah. When I say I don't see color, then it stops us from having the uncomfortable conversations we need to have about righting the wrongs that have been done to people of color, not only in this country, but all over. And I think the other thing, you know, about the conversations, Eric, we've got to be prepared to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. We've got to, because as we start to get into these topics and we accept and we allow in to our own system, our own nervous system, that we have been impacted by, and we have been conditioned by a system that promotes and favors white, straight, cisgender, etc. Then we can experience all kinds of shame and guilt, and that shame and that guilt can cause very strange reactions like, well, I can't say right for doing wrong. Oh my God, everything's too politically correct, and all of that sort of stuff, and it stops the conversation from happening. Mm-hmm. Now, if you are around somebody that comes from a historically excluded group, and the scene has been set that you're going to have some conversations, that are going to have some courageous conversations, then just be prepared to make a mistake. Be prepared to be wrong, and be curious and compassionate with yourself and other people. And when you do get it wrong and the other person says, hey, Eric, I'm not sure if you know, but that word that you used is harmful because, as the perpetrator in that situation, the only acceptable response is, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I didn't know. And now I do, and I take accountability for the impact that had on you, and then you move on. You don't cry, you don't fall on a sword, you don't die, you don't, none of that stuff, because no one needs the histrionics around this, right? It's dramatic enough as it is. So, yeah, I'm not sure I think I've done the typical thing. I've answered the question that I wanted to answer rather than direct the question.
It's all good. No, it's fantastic answer. I want to draw attention to a couple of comments in the chat. So Ruby, you said you were late because you were diving into some of the resources in the back of the book. Ruby was prepping to help me co-host today and then showed up 16 minutes late.
So I literally looked through your book. So DDS, I love your work. And it's something that I'm aware of in the work that we do, and we're facing it, and we're trying to navigate it and be good leaders and good stewards of the roles that we're in. And I got to the resources and I started looking at something. I started listening to the Nice White Parents podcast.
Oh, right. Yes.
So I got through the first episode and I was like, oh my God. But just being exposed to that, it was a totally different thing that I had never thought about. So it really connects to what you said around awareness and what does that mean? And what are other perspectives that I have never even considered?
Yes.
And there was something even in your book, you were talking about even restrooms and having feminine hygiene products available in both genders.
Right.
And I'm like, right? Never would have occurred to me. So
Right.
I love all the things that are in this book and the conversations that are sparked. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. And Ruby, may I offer a slight correction on something?
Yes, please do.
You said both genders, and actually it would be more inclusive to say all genders, because
all genders. Yeah.
We know today, or at least all of the experts on sexuality and gender will say that gender is a spectrum, right?
Thank you, DDS, for bringing that to my attention.
Welcome.
That is the only acceptable answer, Ruby. Well done. Well done.
Well, and I love that you said DDS too, the sort of shame and guilt that can like flare up when we say things incorrectly. So I love that you call that out too. And like, this is all we got to do. Yeah.
I
mean, that takes guts, right? It takes courage.
It does.
Yeah.
Ruby, you dropped courage and vulnerability into the chat a little while ago. It takes both of those things. Mark, you dropped a video in the chat. What is this video, and why should we go watch it?
That was just looking up quickly, having the uncomfortable conversation with a black male. So I saw that there was a podcast, so I just figured I threw that out real quick for everyone.
I love it.
Great.
I love it. Thank you. So DDS, I want to ask one more question before I turn it over to the crew here. You've spent a lot of time dealing with and thinking about the psychology of belonging. So what are your key takeaways for HR people, for people of your tribe? What are your key takeaways for us? Your golden nuggets, your pearls of wisdom here.
Goodness me, Eric. What kind of question's that?
It's a big one. It's a big, heavy question.
Oh, your question has just sparked in me. In workplaces around the world, you get those posters that is just like of an eagle flying that says,
yes,
you can do it. And, all of those shitty, like just
motivational posters.
Like, oh my God, I want to but there's this other one. There's a particular meme that floats around, and it's on greetings cards that says, be kind because everyone's fighting their own battle in some way. And I think that's so true. And that's why I advocate a little bit for in the book for trauma-informed workplaces. Because we all, being human, while it's not a fallen condition, it is a traumatic experience.
True story.
And trauma doesn't happen because we are in danger. Trauma happens because we think we're in danger. And so we all have, whoever we are, no matter where we're from, no matter what body we were born into, we have all experienced some degree of trauma that will get triggered and activated or in some way brought to the fore in the world of work. For many reasons, you can read about it in the book. And I guess what I'm really advocating for is recognizing that there are harmed people everywhere. And I also believe that everyone as a human being is doing the very best they can with the resources they have available to them. And by resources, I mean mental and emotional resources. And those resources are going to be impacted by the trauma we've experienced throughout our life. And so I just advocate for this idea of kindness and openness and receptivity and humanity.
Yeah. As a depression kid, I can empathize here. There's another meme that has various flavors of it, but it's, the crux of it is, be kind to people because everybody's got a story and you have no idea.
Right.
what's going on,
right?
What they're struggling with, what they've suffered through, right? I mean, everybody has a history and everybody has a story. So I love this idea of leading with kindness. I think that's a great place to turn it over to the crew. What questions do you have for DDS about psychological safety, belonging, just all of these topics that we've talked about today? What's on your mind?
I'll go if I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Lori.
And just so you know, DDS, I'm a flight attendant, but I'm also a coach, a life coach.
Oh,
and
cool.
I work in a very dynamic workplace, which is always changing. I mean, each team, each trip is always different and new. And we do have a very diverse workforce, which has just been, for me, I think I'm blessed because it's so amazing to get to meet so many wonderful people of every type, every possible type. Yeah. But there was an article, I can't remember if I was listening to a podcast or at Reddit yesterday, and they were talking about kind of keeping in line with that great resignation piece, but also just about some of the millennials that, you know, my kids are, and, you know, you can lump them all together if you want. That's not accurate, obviously, but there are a lot of 20-somethingers, 30-somethingers who have said, well, if I can't have this, and this at my workplace, I'm not working. And of course, I'm sitting here thinking, going, when I got out of grad school, I needed a job. Not working was not an option. But it's kind of an arrogant attitude, if you will, I think. And I have seen it in action. I've seen job hoppers, and I've got friends who have kids that, you know, they're trying to create that independence. But at the same point in time, it's like, you're not going to find the perfect workplace the first time you try. You know what I'm saying? I look back at my journey over the last 30 some odd years, and it's like, I learned from the worst boss in the world some of the best lessons I could have ever imagined, and some of the worst people I encountered. So you build on all of that. Now, where I am today is, I would have never imagined when I was 25, you know. And for that reason, I'm open to possibilities, and I want to give people a chance, and I want to give the workplace a chance, or to, you know, just allow organizations, you may not find that perfect fit day one and feel completely safe, or feel brave, or feel that you can be yourself 100% because you haven't built a relationship yet with the people there. And one of my mantras has always been, I used to teach college students, and one of my mantras was always, yes, be nice to everyone, because you don't know. Those circles become very small. We all know that. And seek to understand before being understood, and always ask. Like you're saying, you hit the nail on the head with, everybody has a story, and everybody has their backgrounds. And, you know, people look at me, and I was the first one to go to college in my family, but I lived in foster care at one time, and people go, "Ooh, you're white privilege." And it's like, let me tell you my story. And then you tell me if that's really what it is. So, you know, seeking to understand, just asking people as coaches those open-ended questions, and trying to find out where people are coming from and what baggage they're lugging along there too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I'm not saying that you did this, Lori, but I've never been one to throw existential rocks at other generations, because I know that when, as a Gen Xer, when I got into the workplace, I demanded something different than my previous generation, and I think that's what brings about change. And so I'm like, I just never have and never will use the word entitled that gets used a lot in reference to the millennial generation, people from that generation. I think they are impacted by the way in which they're parented, the values and the zeitgeist of the time, and they have their own social conditioning, and therefore have their own needs and wants and expectations. And and cool, great, because that is going to keep us moving forward, and it's going to agitate, and it's going to rock the boat, and great. And I also really feel that, you know, yeah, I can sit here now as 48-year-old DDS, and I can look back at the shitty managers that I've had and the shitty workplaces that I've been in, and I go, wow, they fortified me. Wow, I am who I am today because of where I've come from, not in spite of. But back at that time, I was like, I hate me. I hate my job. I hate my life. I hate everything.
Everything.
Work sucks. But with the benefit of hindsight and the fact that and a lot of therapy, I've been able to sit here today and go, I love who I am.
Today.
Yes, today. Right. And there's no amount of anyone when I was 25, no one would tell me, DDS, it's going to be fine. You're going to be great. You're going to be a #1 best-selling author. Everything's going to be cool. I'd be like, I'm doomed to fail. This is horrible. Everything. And I don't want, you know, there's the whole, okay, boomer, you know, situation. And when I was a 25-year-old, and if a boomer tried to tell me, or, you know, an older person tried to put me on the straight and narrow or tell me how it is, I'd be like,
yes.
And so I don't know why we would expect anybody else to be any different.
You don't know. Don't tell me.
So I guess, you know, I think it's always easier to go to somebody else's bus stop than it is to have them come to yours. And so that's what I want to do. I want to drive my bus stop to where you are standing and invite you onto my bus. You don't have to get on it if you don't want to, but I'm still gonna drive to you. I'm not gonna ask you to walk to my bus stop.
I want to get on that bus because I bet it's fun as fuck on that bus. That's all I know.
It is all tons of fun, Eric, I will tell you.
Hey, come get on my Airbus. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. There it is. All right, guys.
I have.
Any other questions before we wrap it up, get on to our funny things, good feels, and cocktail, and go to dinner?
There's one other thing I just wanted to call out that I saw in your book, DDS. It was a quote that you said, it doesn't make sense to hire brilliant people and tell them how to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that just was like...
Yeah, that was a take from, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, don't hire great people and tell them what to do. Because of course you are going to get told what to do because it's work, and it's called compensation for a reason, right? You have to do things you don't want to do. But yeah, like that's it, right? Like all of us on this call, everybody listening, will have been told at some point in their lives, be less than you are being, be different than you are being. And that is so damaging to the human spirit. And when and I've got goosebumps when I think about it, when the human spirit can grow and can be whole and complete, when you can be your newest you, everything in life, including yourself, is gorgeous. And everything just works better. Everything, you sleep better, you perform better, you interact in better ways. Yeah, telling people how to be is
I don't think we can top that. That is a great place to call it a day. DDS, how do our folks get a hold of you if they want to go deeper, hire you, buy your book? How do they find you?
Yeah, so thank you. DDS@soultrained.com. You can text me at 646-270-6113. You can look at my website, soultrained.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
I love it. Well, big thanks to you for being here today. Thank you so much. Hopefully, you're as hyped now as you were at the beginning and you didn't get freaked out.
It's been lovely.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thanks for going a little bit deeper on a topic that we've been touching on for a long time now. So I appreciate you, appreciate your perspective. And like I said, I think you wrapped it up there at the end in a way that was a pretty big deal. So this is how we end the show, DDS. You're welcome to hang out. It takes about 5 minutes to get through. We do funny things. We do a good feel story to restore our faith in humanity. And then we do a goofy cocktail based on some crazy news story. So funny things. Funny thing number 1 today. Hitman. Who am I killing? Dog. Ever hear of a guy named Pavlov? Hitman. Rings a bell. Dog. That's right. Ruby, you're going to have to come off mute so I can hear you laugh because Lori's not here. Funny thing number 2, security at the airport getting a little bit more straightforward. Apparently, this is a screen on the American Airlines check-in kiosk. Are you a terrorist? Yes or no?
Nope.
This one made me laugh. Celebrating a year since my bike got stolen, and the wee boy put it on Facebook Marketplace that evening, and I stole it back the next day. From the creative file, who took my X-Acto knife? It was me.
That one's funny.
This one, I mean, come on, insane choice of a name. Plant Parenthood. There it is. It's a plant store. And my favorite funny thing, this is for HR people, because the labor shortage hitting every sector. Confession today, Saturday, will be until exactly 5:30 p.m. There is only one priest available for confession today. Make your confession direct and to the point and confess only your sins and offenses. No need to explain why you did it. Oh, thank you very much.
Whoa.
That was for you, Ruby.
Yeah, Holy Week.
All right, today's good feel story is about a blind drag racer. Here we go.
Steve Hartman this morning has the story of a man driven by a most singular vision.
You can make excuses or you can make it happen. So good. All right, today's SemiQuarantine cocktail, big old cake. It's a riff on the birthday cake martini. You're going to need 2 ounces of whipped vodka, 22 provincial fried cake festivals. Yes. That's an Argentinian thing. A little bit of amaretto, 2,645 pounds of flour. A little bit of white chocolate liqueur, 3,527 pounds of melted fat.
Oh.
2 ounces of half and half that yield you a 16-foot cake that required a crane, honey and sprinkles for garnish. Here's a photo of this cake being lifted by the crane. There it is.
Whoa.
That's a 16-foot cake. And with that, I am hungry and you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. Thanks to DDS Dobson Smith. We will see you guys next week. We've got more fun in store.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyeteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyeteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.